A group of 15 of my fellow inmates, a group of gang members actually, the Bloods. And here they stand talking about what they were going to do to another inmate. I remember looking up, can't believe my ears that they're talking about it that loudly in front of everybody. They're talking about the other guy, and if they can get this other guy in trouble, where they can set him up, get him to lock up, then they can rob him. Again, I'm looking up, trying to get them to see me, see them. Trying to talk them down with my eyes. They're talking loudly, they're talking violently, they're laughing. Again, why would this group of gang members care what I thought at this time? Well, a couple of reasons. I lived with these guys. Not for days, not for weeks, not for months. I lived with them for years at this point. So they had a pretty good idea what I stood for. Second reason, the reason I was holding myself accountable required me to hold my environment accountable. And I reasoned out here, hey, if they do it to this guy, they do it to me. I'm not letting it go down like that. They get a little bit more animated. They start talking about this guy. He's observing them, talking about him. He's trying to ignore them. They send one guy into his area. They wind up slapping him. He can't help himself. He responds. A fight breaks out. They're pushing the bunk beds. It's very loud. The cops hear it. They run down, throw them both on the ground, cuff them, drag them both out. The 14 guys remaining got what they wanted. They go into that guy's area. They grab his trunk, and they bring it back into their area. As they proceed to break into this guy's trunk, well, what did they want? Well, inside of everybody's trunk was where you kept your clothes, your hygienic products, your food. But at this point, they were no longer selling cigarettes on the canteen. And this group wanted what he had. He had all these cigarettes in there, and they couldn't help themselves. They go into the area, they're wrapping a towel around the lock, they're going to pop it open. Again, I'm sitting there, I'm shaking. I can't believe they're doing it in the open. They could have waited until I went to rec. They could have waited until I left the tier on a movement. They had to do it in front of me. So yes, I have to make a decision. Why did I have to make a decision? Well, hey, decisions have to be made. Did you know that even a decision to ignore it, listen to me, even a decision to ignore it is a decision. Some say it's not my business, I'll look away. That's a decision. You just showed yourself out when you make a decision to mind your business. But no, if you hold yourself accountable, you make the decision to intercept or interrupt something like that. Well, at this time, I was very friendly with one of my neighbors. His name was Little John. Little John was my little friend. And Little John was out at recreation at this time. They terminated the prison yard. Little John comes in. He feels the tension. It's very quiet. These guys are still over there. Little John comes up to me and says, Matt, what happened? I said, you won't believe it. They got someone to the lockup. They got his locker in their area right now. They're going to break into it. Little John says, really? Are you going to let it go down like that? I said, nope. He said, okay, no problem. Little John proceeds to walk down the highway in the direction where they're breaking into the locker. Oh yeah, Little John is a 330-pound man. Little John is a former mob enforcer for a crime family in New York City. 330-pound man walks down the highway, walks right into the area where they're breaking into this locker, stares everybody in their eye, grabs the trunk, stares every one of them in their eye again, walks back down the highway, back into my 3x8 area, puts the trunk down, and just plops on it. Boom. They didn't like that. The 14 guys rise up, they come running down, they squeeze into a 3x8 area and asking us, I will not repeat the language, why are you getting involved with what we're doing? Why don't you mind your business like all these other punks? Why don't you turn your eyes? Little John said this very calmly as he sat. If it has to do with Matt pointing to me, it has to do with me pointing to himself. Then he said, if you want what's inside of this trunk, come and get it. I remember they all looked at each other, could not believe what we just said. Their leader, their OG, stepped out. He says, listen, Little John, Matt, you guys have been around for a while. You know what we're capable of. I'm just curious. Why would you do this? Don't you know that getting involved with what we're doing can get you poked up, stabbed? You know we're going to have to answer for this, right? I'm just really curious, what would make you do something like this? You know what Little John said back? Little John said one word back to these guys. It was a word that Little John didn't know a couple years earlier. It was a word that Little John, he learned over time. It's a singular word that brings me to your school today. You know what he said? He said integrity. Little John said, because I have integrity today. I remember again, they looked at each other. They may not have knew what the word meant. It disarmed them. They removed themselves from my area temporarily. So I tell you this story about Little John and I. About accountability, holding yourself accountable, holding the people next to you accountable, and integrity. Which isn't just doing the right thing when coaches and teachers and parents are looking. It's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. So I tell you this story about us, not so that afterwards you can come up to me and pat me on my back and say, wow, Matt, you're a hero. No. I tell you this story to let you know accountability and integrity have nothing to do with the place and where you're at, and everything to do with the person and where you're at. So I ask you, student athletes, do you have what it takes to hold yourself accountable? This weekend, you know where the party's at. You're there. You see somebody drinking. You see them grab their keys. Do you stop them? Do you intercept it, interrupt it? Or do you mind your business? It doesn't concern you. Do you step in and do the right thing, hold yourself accountable because you saw it, then hold them accountable because it's not a good decision? What do you do? Hey ladies, you know, you're with your girlfriends, you know, and you see Bay go off with a guy, and you know the guy's no good. Do you step in and stop it? Or do you wait till you see her after the weekend and it's all fun and giggles? What do you do? It's real stuff. I was in college. Guys, argument breaks out. We're tough. We got ego. Do we stir it up? Do we step in? Or do we break it up? Do we stop it? I go to that area, you know why? Because I was in prison with regular Joes who in an argument took the step forward to fight, and because of a push or a punch wound up hurting the person or killing the person. Like that. And their life derailed. Bar fights, college fights. So my challenge is, do you hold yourself accountable? Do you have what it takes to hold yourself accountable? And what does that look like in your life? I want you guys to look at my face. I want you to look in my eyes and try to see yourself. And if you can't see yourself in me and only see me as a shame, that's fine. And even if you only see me as a murderer, I understand that as well. But at least see me as a message that you cannot afford to neglect tonight. At least see me as the other side of reality that you must consider as your reality. Hey, at least see me as a bad decision that you must avoid. You know what's crazy? So many people tell me I shouldn't do this. Some say you don't deserve a voice for what you did. And I think about it. And then I say, you know what? You're right. I don't deserve a voice for what I did. Far from it. But you know who knows? Who deserves the message? You guys. I may not deserve the voice, but you deserve the message. And the communities where we're from, they deserve this type of response to something like this.
Although we can't bring him back.
Although we can't bring him back.
I can't take his place.
I can't take his place.
And I believe the message
I believe
will change lives.
the message will change lives. I believe that because I've seen it. I've seen the message change people's lives, perspectives, change their path. I can't count how many people in here. But I know the stats. That's why I don't talk about stats, but I know some of you guys are drinking drive right now. Some of you will do it this weekend, even after hearing this. So I come share my story. Hopefully, that it'll change the direction you're going. Hopefully, you might not be that person, but maybe you now hear the message and you carry it and can stop somebody else from doing it. That's the point. And I know I've said so much. What's the message? Well, let me condense it. Let me narrow it down. The message is knowing that the decisions you make will make you or break you and even reveal you. The message is knowing that the decisions you make from this point forward will determine where you go. In fact, where you sit and how you hear will determine where you go from here. The message is knowing that your decisions are your decisions. You must always consent upon your decisions. Nobody can force them upon you. Hey, the message is knowing your future is only as bright as your last decision. And that's your reality. My reality right now, there's no bringing my victim back. I wake up, I think of that, and it haunts me. There's no getting the time I spent in prison back. I spent 55 months behind a prison wall. How much time, how much life consists in 4 years and 8 months? Well, for you, where were you 4 years ago? How many holidays, how many birthdays, how many celebrations, how many festivals, how many weddings? Hey, how many funerals? There's no way I can get that one reckless and fatal decision back, which will always leave my victim's family missing far more than I'll ever miss. But you know what, Cabrini? Though I can't get back, I'm learning that I can give back. So I do share my story, hoping, praying that you guys will believe it and you will apply it. Hardest thing for a speaker like me to do is combat certain ideas that float around. Teachers use this expression. You guys may as well. It's this. It says experience is the best teacher. Right? Well, I want to experience life. I want to come to a conclusion about something, so I have to try it. You know, guys, you have to test drive it, right? You got to see if the glove fits, right? Try it before you buy it, dude. You know, you see older siblings, you see mom and dad partaking in a lifestyle. So we follow in their footsteps, where society promotes it, and we believe, hey, we are entitled to it. I want to experience it, right? It'll teach me. But you know what? If experience is the best teacher, I say that's only if you can afford the tuition that goes with certain experiences. Because certain experiences take you further than you ever wanted to stray. Certain experiences cost you more than you ever wanted to pay. And certain experiences keep you longer than you ever wanted to stay. That's my reality. I was released on August 3rd, 2014, the end of last summer. Exited a prison wall for the first time unshackled, unchained, unguarded, outside of Southern State Correctional Facility. It was the first time I could embrace my family with a hug and a kiss and not have a guard over me saying, let go, against the wall. It was the first time I was able to have this brand new perception about freedom. With a brand new perception, a brand new awareness, you know what? My future began on that day, guys. And you know what I say? If my future began on that day, then your future begins on this day. Only your future is like a mirror, staring right back at you. And where you go from here, student athletes, depends on what you've heard from here. Will you learn from me and do better than me? Or will your dreams turn into a nightmare that you can't awake from? See, I end as abruptly as I began, with a singular question. Something to consider. Something to ask yourself when you leave here. Student athletes, how is your perception tonight? Thank you for your audience and your respect. You guys have been great. So what happens is we probably have about 10 minutes. Usually I do this, I share my story, I do the presentation, and I hate to kind of run out. You guys are at that point where you understand social media. There's always questions that people don't want to ask in front of other people, so I put my social media handles up there. Find me, follow the message, follow the mission. But if you have a question, a comment, a concern, please reach out. I'd love to hear from the people that heard the story. In addition, they said we can have about 10 minutes for a Q&A. So if there's anybody who has a question, maybe something you're curious about, something I didn't cover in the presentation, you can ask it. Now's the time. Just for the record, I know some of the soccer boys in here, the young bucks, the freshmen from Wildwood Catholic. Sal, Jared. Yeah, they're my man. Is Kevin here? Mikey Faracco is my man too. Where's he at? You guys know Mikey already? You guys have any questions? Yes. Okay, I'm on parole. Probation is something you get before you go to prison. That's okay. Probation's before prison. It's like, it's the punishment or consequence before prison. Parole is something that happens after prison. I'm on parole for 5 years. I've completed 1 year, so I have 4 years remaining on that sentence. So there's so many different things that go with parole. Really is a strain. Obviously, from where I was, prison, to where I am, I'll take parole for the rest of my life if I had to. But trying to explain to you guys, there's consequences. I'm still dealing with consequences from a decision that I made to leave a bar, to think I can make it to another location, and I often say, hey, that journey has not yet ended for me. That night never ended. And here I stand, trying to make you guys understand that every decision you make will determine your destiny. It really isn't a cliche if you're living it. So thank you for your question. Yes? Victims found. Am I still in contact? Yes, I am. Actually, the scene you guys saw in court, that was his son. His son's name is Noon. Noon, before the media covered it, he's explaining how he heard about his daddy dying. In a very explicit and detailed way, he says he received a phone call. And he's yelling at this point how he felt when he heard it. And then he turned to me, and when you hear him say, "You destroyed my world." And I remember almost on the inside whimpering. And then he stopped. And then what you saw, he proceeded to come over to me. And he says, "But I forgive you, my brother." And we shake hands and we hug. And I kid you not, it felt like the weight of the world just lifted off my shoulders. Immediately after they took me out of the courtroom for day number 1 in prison, my family requested to sit with the victim's family, and they agreed. So in a side courtroom, my family and their family held hands and prayed. And then they exchanged contact numbers. So for the amount of time I was away, my mom and 2 of his daughters would exchange emails and Facebook messages. They would ask how Matt's doing. I was very vocal from prison. I'm writing a blog. So they were following the story. I believe that's kind of the reason why I might be here today. Somebody was following my story from the beginning that I went to Temple University with. But yes, since I've been out, there's been contact. They say we support Matt, what he's doing, his message. We hold no hard feelings. We forgive him. Our daddy would not want us to hold anything against him. So being on parole, there's still a lot of things I have to worry about. I can't just reach out to them. I can't pick up my phone and call. I have to go through an agency to do that. So I'm trying to get them to come to one of these presentations in the near future. But yes, there's a relationship there, and it's miraculous. Thank you for your question.
Were you drinking and driving often?
I've drank and have driven before, but not often. I had my first alcoholic beverage when I was 18, graduated high school, went to Temple University. You guys know, being student athletes, actually depending on your coach, how serious that program is. Mine was serious at Temple University. If anybody knows Davey McWilliams, he's a legend in Philadelphia soccer. So I barely drank in my college years, except when there was time. Hey, you guys are off for this weekend, go be safe. And I was always the one that they called grandpa growing up. Very responsible, was the one that made sure the plans were made, was the one that would drive and not drink. So the reason why I became more frequent is because as a pro, being in that world, that lifestyle, that platform, a lot of times we would go to a bar for an appearance. And you would sit at the bar and you would have a drink or two and you would sign autographs. And you know what? Thoughtlessly, you would leave the engagement and you would get in your vehicle. And there were so many times where that engagement turned into guys taking more drinks and still getting in their vehicle and driving. I did that frequently. So, can it be traced back to a decision making, first time getting into a vehicle after drinking? Sure. Thinking you can do it. And then finally, to that one point where you can't reverse it. It's a good question, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
How in a way has this incident changed you on a personal level?
Has it changed me on a personal level? How has it changed me on a personal level?
Yeah.
Well, right there. I wrote a book, you can read it. It's changed me inside out tremendously. I mean, there's probably nothing about my life. The only way I can use the word you use to explain. Transformation is a Greek word. It actually means metamorphosis. Did you guys know that? Metamorphosis is the transformation that a caterpillar undergoes to become what? A butterfly. So it has to spend time in a cocoon. So I spent a lot of time in a cocoon and underwent great transformation, and hopefully I can be in this part of my life like a butterfly. So yeah, I can answer that even more personally, not in front of everybody. Good question, man. Guys, any other questions? I know you're anxious to get out of here. No other questions? Yes?
How do you not cry when you watch those videos of you being funny?
I do. Not the second one. The second one kind of is the one that I hang on to when I come back up. The first one is very hard for me to swallow, so that's why I go off and watch it sometimes. I go off to the side and I'm praying actually over there. Sometimes I get choked up and I can't even continue. I'll come back up, and in settings like this, I just did one at a program in Cabrini County, and I came back and I lost it. So it's weird. If you ever had any type of grief in your life, it just rises up suddenly, and you can't even close it down. So I do my very best, not only to try to maintain the emotions during the presentation, but also be passionate about it. Because over time, it can get numb. And I don't want to be a robot up here just going through slides. I want you guys to believe what I'm saying and let you know that it's still inside of me every time I watch that video. Very good question.
You still talk to Little John?
Little John's a man. Yeah. Hey, surprisingly, I get that question everywhere I go. No matter what setting I'm in, I get that question. Yeah, I'm in contact with Little John to this day. He lives in Clifton, New Jersey. He comes to a presentation every now and then when I'm up in North Jersey. He's living a law-abiding life. He's no longer criminal-minded. He's transformed his life, to answer your question again. And he's a construction worker. He's staying busy. He goes to church, and me and Little John are tight. Little John's a bad dude, man. He's a bad dude. So usually when I see some of the men or the males or the boys staring at my wife, I let them know that I still have Little John's phone number. And that's not my parole officer over there. That's my wife taking the pictures. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's my bag. Any other questions, guys? Say it again. Family life from the beginning to even now. Yeah, it was obviously, guys, if you can imagine, you probably can relate to even a bad decision when you were growing up affects your family life. You know, mom and dad may fight because of what you did, because the mom wants to give you favor and the dad wants to come down on you. You can imagine the dynamics after such a decision, which shocked my community. My father was in law enforcement. He still is the undersheriff of Cabrini County. That's a political position. So people actually approached him and asked him to step down because of what his son did. Now, my father was the reason why I understood integrity so well as I watched him. And obviously, he had to separate the two, his work and his fatherhood. My mom, and I say this because this is how it affected her, when she found out what I did, she found out the last second. She thought I was just in an accident, drinking and driving. She never put her mind to the place where somebody was hurt or killed. So when I walked in, my uncle went ahead of me. They picked me up from the police station. He went in and he said, Andrea, it's his sister, his little sister, the guy, he's dead. That's how he told my mom. So when I walk in, the next thing she says to me, now my mom is my #1 fan. She loves me unconditionally, but this is where she went. She looked at me and said, it should have been you. Now people say, how could a mom do that? Well, after thinking about what she said, weeks, months went by, her reasoning in the moment was, it was hard for her to even understand that I, her youngest boy, took somebody else's life. It would have been easier for her to lose me than to deal with the loss of somebody else that she doesn't even know. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, so my relation with my brothers, everything was strained. Friends that I was very friendly with at the time, I'm no longer friendly with to this day. So it affects everything. People that you thought were in your corner, after something like this, you find out they're now your enemy. So you guys have no idea. I mean, there's some student athletes in here now that they were in my camp. I used to coach them and train them. was very friendly with their families, so I don't know what their response was. It would have been normal if they were like, well, we don't want him to work with our kids anymore. You know, that's the reality of it. So I'm a convicted felon. Let me sum up the question with, I'm a convicted felon. I have a file. When I go for a job, I can show them Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, legal studies this, professional athlete that, business owner, and they'll see that word, felon. And immediately they may put my file to another pile. So to say it hasn't affected my life because I'm doing this, people have no idea. It's an excellent question, thank you. There was somebody behind. Anybody else? Boys are too cool to ask questions, I see. All right, you guys have been excellent. I appreciate your time, I really do.